All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start our last big session of the day. It's going to be a lot of fun. My name is Oliver Libby. I do two things for a living. I run a venture firm called Hatsumemos Libby, and I chair the board of a social impact accelerator called the Resolution Project. We're here to talk today about solving big challenges. And I think we can all agree that the world has a few of those around. One of the things that really excites me about this room is that we are about solving problems. We're about addressing them intelligently, about using data to find the right thing to do, and then about implementing that thing effectively so we can get to a solution for the challenges that face us in the world. One that's near and dear to my heart is the future of work. And I think an important thing about understanding how to solve a challenge is to pinpoint where the main problems are. So something that I think a little bit about, and that will help me kind of thread this whole conversation through today, is what really underlies the challenge of the future of work today. A lot of people will read about robots coming to steal jobs, but then you'll read a countervailing position that says, no, in fact, creative destruction will create jobs that we have heretofore unimagined. What is really the problem at the core of that we have to address as a community? That problem is actually what I call the job velocity challenge. So back in the day, if you put someone out of work who was, say, for example, picking cotton, that person might end up then in a hotel folding linens that were much cheaper because of that, and the training process was much, much faster. Today, if driverless cars take a truck driver and put them out of work in the next few years, how quickly can we train that person to become a cybersecurity professional? That job velocity challenge is a very big challenge. The good news is that we have ways to solve it. We need to think about it, though, in terms of the increment of time that most American families have, and that's less than 2 paychecks of downside risk protection in their bank account. And that is a very serious problem. So we need to do this quickly. The good news is, in this room, I know there are people focused on several major parts of this challenge. A bridge, for example, for employment might be new business starts. You might be surprised to know, for example, that America is less entrepreneurial than we have been in recent memory. I will leave that with you for a second. You think, well, we start tech companies all the time here. What's going on? But in fact, since 2006, we're starting almost 30% fewer businesses in this country. There are a couple million small businesses that account for almost 50% of the jobs in our economy. And in fact, every year, 15% of all new jobs come from new business starts. So we need to think about ways to create pathways for new job creation. We need to think about access to all kinds of capital, equity, but also debt, small business loans, revolving credit. We need to think about training our new entrepreneurs. We need to think about pairing them with mentors, with free services or cheap services to get their businesses off the ground, because they will create jobs that build a bridge for new job creation in America today. But longer term, and we're going to hear some about this from our panelists and speakers today, is actually looking at the longer term. There are things we can do, for example, in education today that are crucially important to address the job velocity challenge. But we need to stop thinking about education as a graduation date and now you're ready for the workforce forever. We need to think about it in new ways. There's a startup I know in San Francisco that will actually pay people to attend classes. And then over the next 3 years, they'll run an analysis of the job they get. If they don't get a job, the startup doesn't get paid. But if they do get a job, then a portion of their proceeds go back to pay forward their education. That may or may not be the solution, but it's that kind of thinking, and I know there are those of you in this room who are doing just this, that will lead us to education of the future. And Aaron North is going to be telling us a little more about that later. Another thing we could do, many of us in this room work on international sustainable development. We need to bring the things we've learned in the international community home. We need to remember that we have learned overseas that top-down development does not work as well as listening to the communities, figuring out what is working on the ground, and then massively resourcing those ideas with scale, with capital, and moving them around to the other places that could use them. So going to West Virginia and saying, hey, we're going to take you from your coal jobs where you found security, history, and benefits, and we're going to train you to code, but it's all going to be okay. And by the way, if that doesn't work, we'll write you a check. And we need to say, no, what is working in your community? How can we resource that for growth with centralized resources and build a pathway to jobs of the future? So this is the way that I like to address long-term challenges and build solutions to major problems. I'll say one last thing about it. I'm really delighted that the people here in this room and on this panel today, or in this session today, represent all sectors. Big challenges rarely find a solution in one sector. They will find solutions that are perhaps born in bench science, taken through the venture community, scaled by large corporations, resourced by more government funds. taken into communities of need by NGOs. It is a cross-sector challenge to solve a big problem, and if we leave any of that on the sidelines, we will be ill-served as a society. So I think we can all agree, if we work together, if we listen to the wise words of the people who will follow me on the stage today, then we can create some amazing solutions to big challenges before us. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first participant in this wonderful session, June Sugiyama of the Vodafone Americas Foundation. She is going to come up here along with 3 very amazing organizations that represent innovation, which is one of the ingredients to solving the big challenges we have today. June, thank you very much.